South Park has been around for a long time, and somehow it continues to be relevant and funny to this day. Honestly, I don't watch it often, but occasionally I catch an episode and usually get baffled at the things that happen on the show. The game follows this trend, especially with all the talk of games being censored lately. I constantly question myself, how the hell did that get in the game?
Be made to have 4 asses instead of 1? The answer was yes. And now we've been able to give more asses to pigs, horses, everything you can imagine. Yes, little boy.
How does that help?
Oh, you're one of the cynics, huh? Well, meet me over here for the tour and I'll show you how. Come on, don't be shy. We don't want to miss the 4-assed gorilla feeding.
This was one of the biggest surprises I have had in a while. Honestly, it's great to see all these crazy ideas come together in such a nice way. So let's just jump right on to South Park: The Fractured But Whole. Going into this game not having played the Stick of Truth, I wasn't sure what I was in for. I knew it was a turn-based strategy game with a grid system. I also knew it was superhero themed, and me not being a huge fan of superheroes, I was a bit concerned. All these worries left in the first 10 minutes of the game. From beginning to end, you can feel that distinct South Park style oozing out of everything. It truly is like playing an episode of the show, with plenty of toilet humor to go around. Speaking of toilet humor, that is exactly how you start the game, on a toilet, literally, taking a number 2 in your house. But let's back up just a little bit. First, you must create your own character and choose his skin color. This color, going from lighter to darker, defines the difficulty of the game, being that the darker you are, the less money you earn, and it changes the way some characters address you. This choice, however, does not affect the battle difficulties, which has its own separate choice. Unless you care for trophies, I recommend going middle of the road with all of the options for a nice but fair experience. Though, money in my playthrough was not an issue even with a darker skin tone. Regardless, these options can always be changed later for perfectly matching each player. Since I'm talking about options, let me praise something very small but very important for me that I hope more games apply in the future. South Park has subtitles with borders for easy reading. More often than it should happen, I find myself not being able to read something because of the color of the image making the text blend together, and this might be the only game I can remember that has a specific option just for the border. I would love to see things like this being a staple in future video games alongside colorblind options. I might not be colorblind, but I always find it good when games allow you to enable these things. Enough ranting about definitions though, let's talk setting. As mentioned before, you start the game on your toilet. All the kids in South Park are still wrapped up in the events of the Stick of Truth when you join them. However, Cartman dressed as a superhero shows up from the future and convinces the kids to give up this medieval role-playing and instead play superheroes. From here, we find that their goal is to make a profitable superhero franchise, and Cartman wants to kickstart it by finding the missing cat and collecting the $100 reward. But because no one can decide who gets a movie and who gets a Netflix show and whatnot, the gang is actually divided into 2 factions: Coon and Friends, which is led by Cartman, aka the Coon, and the Freedom Pals, led by Timmy, aka Dr. Timothy. Being accepted in the Coon and Friends, you get to choose one of 3 superhero classes and given a rather interesting backstory. Throughout the game, you will be able to unlock more classes and mix and match them, being that by the end, you'll have access to all the abilities of each class. Every time you choose a new class, your backstory changes. This backstory is essentially a tutorial that teaches you about your new combat moves and always ends in the same way, with your dad porking your mom. This terrible tragedy, according to Cartman, is the source of your power. From here, you are mostly set free, with some places being blocked by barriers that you can only overcome later in the game. The game consists of 2 things: South Park exploration in a 2.5D third-person perspective and the grid turn-based strategy. The exploration is honestly pretty fun and holds plenty of secrets. I was worried it was going to get repetitive, but it never actually did. Once you start unlocking all your special traits, more things will open to you and every house is explorable and lootable at some point. Here, you can also interact with the plethora of characters from the show and take pictures for your Coonstagram with them. Technically, this is a collectible, but it never really felt like it. most of them require certain standards to take pictures with you, either a certain amount of followers on the fake social media, or even a condom for the old man on a wheelchair. Because of this, it felt more like a long side quest. The town of South Park also holds clothing pieces all over the map, which you can equip for a more personalized character. You also have inspection mode, which helps you detect things of interest, including where you can use your special traits. As for the theme of the game, these abilities are all fart and butt based. In specific spots, you can summon allies that open new paths or objects for you. There are ridiculous things such as farting in your diabetic friend's face so he gets mad and throws things down, or throwing Butter's hamster with your butt to electrical wires. Of course, we can't forget the combat. I have to be honest, I was not expecting such a fleshed out and enjoyable combat system, but they actually delivered something engaging but not overwhelming. In combat, you control both you and 3 other companions of your choice. There is a total of 12 allies to choose from, and each one has 3 powers and 1 ultimate attack. Unlike you though, you can't change them in any way, but it's not really an issue since their character designs are so great and their powers are all varied. It won't really matter. Before an encounter, you can also start with an advantage or disadvantage. Throwing a fart at your enemies, for example, will make them start a battle grossed out, which means they will puke every time their turn comes around, which reduces their health. Grossed out is not the only status effect in the game. Things like bleed out, burning, poisoning, freezing, and shocking are also on the game. And let's not forget my favorites, invisibility and seduction. These last 2 can be lifesavers, especially seduction, so make sure to take advantage of it. The effects are not only stackable but also upgradable, meaning if an enemy is already affected by, for example, burn, using another burn power will make the effect stronger. The enemies can and will use these effects against you too, but just like you, they have their own turn and their own unique powers. Being that some of these are devastating but have a waiting period and an area of effect that can be avoided, even if you find yourself surrounded and losing. The game will button prompt you when you hit or get hit, which in turn makes your special meter rise. As mentioned before, each character has his own with a fun little cutscene for each of them. For your character, you can pick it, and I would strongly recommend the Plantmancer's Ultimate Nature Gift. Not only does it revive any fallen comrades, but it heals the ones that are alive too. I guess this is a good time to tell you there are items such as revives and heals, but I didn't use them too much. Only the last parts of the game justify that use. That's about as much as I have to say about the items though. There's tiny little things in these combats that really show that South Park charm, such as the dialogues between characters and the microaggression free hit you can learn from PC Principle. But I have to leave some things out because I do feel like they are better experienced firsthand and I don't want to spoil it too much. Speaking of spoilers though, it's time we dwell into those territories. Honestly, the plot is the main reason to play this. It really does feel like an episode of the show. The bosses are very nicely designed and all have a twist on the combat system. The story gets particularly crazy in the end, and Mitch Connor being the main villain was honestly an hilarious twist. I won't go into detail on it, but I was pleasantly surprised by the story and the ending. Sadly, after the credits roll, there's not much to do anymore. You can keep exploring and collecting the Yaoi, cats, artifacts, and clothing, but that's it. You can also beat up Morgan Freeman, but he is the hardest enemy in the game, so be prepared. Okay, so writing this, I almost forgot the artifacts and fart abilities. Oops. Throughout the game, you can craft, earn, or find artifacts that you can equip on your character that make you have more might. Essentially, the more might you have, the stronger you are. These artifacts also give you boosts to different things, such as your allies' health or how fast your ultimate meter fills. The fart abilities can both be used during and out of combat. In combat, it nullifies an enemy's turn and you can use it to slow down time and punch your enemies. Outside of combat, it can be used to reset puzzles or slow down time. There are 2 more, but I think it's much nicer to find them by yourself. Honestly, there's a few things I'm mostly or completely ignoring, such as the crafting system or the summons, but the crafting system works and it's fine. But I didn't really use it a lot. And the rest, once again, blah blah blah, experience it yourself talk. It is absolutely worth your time though. And there you have it, my somewhat weird and sloppy review of South Park: Fractured Butthole. I really enjoyed my time with it. I found some parts to be hilarious and some of the references, such as the Lovecraftian ones, really surprised me in a good way.
Sir? Huh? Oh, I see. I guess because cops feed African Americans to an elder god, they're racist. Shub-Niggurath is an outer god, kids, who must be appeased and whose coming was foretold by the great H.P. Lovecraft. But I suppose H.P. Lovecraft was a racist too. Oh, fuck. Was he really? Like how racist? Really?
The music too was top notch and it hit every note with me. Now I can only hope they make a third game. If you liked it, subscribe and destroy that like button. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.
If I can't use my mobile devices, I can't save this town. Let's go find out what's wrong with this place.
Welcome to D-Mobile. Can I help you?
Crab people look like crab. Work at mobile stores like people.